in Bible translation and used me to give the new translation of the Bible to the nation of 60 million people.
Wow.
And I'm also a missionary and a pastor, baptized hundreds of people and married hundreds of people. And at first, America was a land of freedom to us, Polish people, and to me particularly. And then it became a nation that cooperated with me and speeded up my efforts to be simply effective for Jesus among the Polish-speaking population of this planet. So that's probably about me.
Peter spent 20 years basically, last 20 years, translating the Greek and Hebrew into modern Polish language. And they now have a Bible in Poland that is a modern translation due to Peter's 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, for probably started at about 16 to 18 years. He's still doing footnotes. He's still doing stuff even today to get it better. But they have printed it, and it's been an amazing journey that Peter has accomplished over the last couple decades. Quite a story. No ifs, ands,
Praise
buts
the Lord.
about
All I can say is I'm glad I'm not speaking today.
Are there different dialects in Polish?
There are some.
So how does the Bible take? How does your
All
Bible
of them
handle
understand
that?
it well.
How does it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, we can ask some questions after the. Who else is new besides? Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah. My name is Rick Ryan. Just a local kid. Talk about a blessing. I just heard about this a few days ago and got invited. And Larry, I spent time with Larry years back, and it's just a true blessing to be here today. So I appreciate it.
Well, we're glad to have you here.
Thanks for coming,
Rick.
Who else?
I'm Paul LaFawn. I'm from Boston, and I met Joe at breakfast the other day. He
Okay.
invited me to come. I used to be a sports writer in Boston, like 70, 80, 90. Covered the Patriots, Celtics.
Patriots, you can sit down.
But I was with the bad teams.
Oh, okay.
They went to one Super Bowl. And I met Joe. He was kind enough to invite me, and this is fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
We're blessed to have you.
Yeah.
We're blessed to have you.
I remember some of the names.
You remember me? Joe Jackson, that's an easy name. He was a great player.
Yeah, great player.
Yeah, okay, I'll do my own part.
Yeah.
How about you brothers over there? Not soul brothers, but brothers.
My name's Royce Woolbridge, and I coach Little Joe over at Saguaro, and he also plays for my club team, the Running Rebels. And I got invited here tonight, and I brought one of my best friends, and we're just happy to be here.
All right.
And Royce also has played basketball overseas. He trains a lot of people. He has a great name, and he's done many things, so we're very happy that.
We're so honored to have you.
Sunny Slope High, right?
Yep, Sunday Slope.
I remember you, Royce.
Who is your best friend?
Yeah, I'll speak for myself. My name is Alex. I'm a Valley kid. Play sports here, ran track at NAU. But yeah, I was gracious enough to get an invite from Royce by way of the Miller family, so I just came to show support.
We are honored you come back again, both of you guys. Who else? What? My brother.
Darius Kelly, I'm the head football coach over at Saguaro High School.
All right.
Oh, great. Awesome.
I was a military kid. I lived pretty much everywhere across the country, Florida, Arizona, North Carolina. But I was invited by the Miller family.
Awesome.
Honored to be here. So thank you guys for having us.
Brother, it is an honor.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Honor. Thank you so much. Who else? No, John, you're not here. Right here.
My name is Frank Rubin. I'm also a football coach at Saguaro High School, and when I'm not doing that, I coach the girls' tennis team. Two different ends of the spectrum. I've just finished my 22nd season at Saguaro coaching football. Love what I do, love what we do for kids, and this is one of the truest men I've ever met in my life right here.
That's cool.
Royce, I didn't see in the background, but so, we've known the Millers for a long time. I come in here and they told me about this and said, well, can't miss it. That's for sure.
We love
Glad
you.
to be here.
and only.
I have a special friend I've known since 1976. Went to Super Bowl together, and I think he went to 4. And 81 interceptions, more interceptions than anyone in the National Football League. He's in the Hall of Fame, in the NFL Hall of Fame. He's in the Minnesota Viking Ring of Honor. I don't know how many INTs you've had to the house, but I know you had 81 INTs. But anyway, Paul Krause. Paul Krause.
I'm not speaking.
Just turn around and say hi to everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, I can talk loud.
Okay.
It's an honor for me to be here. Joe Jack, he and I formed a little, I wouldn't even know what to say. We're partners, you know. Amen. We're partners in God. And he came in, I don't know, when you had, how long were you with Vikings?
2 years.
2 years? Jeez, oh. Yeah, I played 16 years.
Wow.
I don't know how I made it. The good Lord did, though. He was, to play in the NFL, you got to be good and you got to be lucky. And I don't know which one I was. But you know, I played for 16 years. I'm 83 years old, and I'm still going. And I'll go as long as the Lord keeps me. And I could tell you all kinds of stories and everything. I played against the best of the best. And, but you know, I don't like to tell stories about this and then this and then this and sit down. Because, you know, if anybody has any, if you want to find out or know anything, just tell me. You know, I'll tell you the truth. And there's a lot of truth in some of this football game and every other game too. Hockey, basketball, everything. It's all going down. You know, the football is, you know, you have to play what the coaches call and everything. The coaches don't know anything. They don't know anything. Not upstairs, you know, in the big game.
Did you tell Bud Grant that?
Oh, he knew something. But I'm glad to be here, and if you have any other questions, just ask me.
Well, we love you, brother. I remember, I think it was in the 80s, and Paul asked me. I was doing a lot of music and singing. Remember that, Paul?
Yes.
And it was about 6:30 in the morning. You had a group of kids at us. Where was that at? That was in Burnsville.
Burnsville, yeah.
And you asked us to play there and to minister at 6:30 in the morning, and we did that.
He did. He went down. He got up.
Yeah, it was a great event. We have a very, very special speaker today, and a man that really needs no introduction. And we're going to hear him speak first, Larry, right? And then we're going to eat,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to make a
Yeah,
few comments.
well, come here.
Okay, I'm walking slowly now for some reason. I don't
Well,
know
just
why.
let me say this. This is a man that called a lot of Super Bowls. He was the radio voice of he didn't mention this, Paul, the Green Bay Packers for years. He and Ray Scott. I just, when you think of the Packers and the voice, you think of Ray Scott too. And I didn't like that voice at all. Not at all. But we hosted a banquet together He called our game, our championship game in '78 with the Paul. He called the game in '75.
They did the Hail Mary game. I know you like that game.
That was the Tony Hill, wasn't it, or not?
No, that was
Drew Pearson?
That
Drew
was
Pearson.
Roger Staubach.
Yeah.
To Drew Pearson, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I can tell you a lot about that.
I ought to ask you about that. Yeah.
Do.
Yeah,
I wanna tell
hey, you
how
guys,
bad those
we're so
referees are.
blessed here. It's amazing. Rick, so good to see you. I haven't seen you for, what, 30 years, I think? But you blessed our ministry way back then, too, and we've been doing this for many years. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite people is the guy with us today. And I don't even know why I called him. I just went through, his name just popped up. I gave him a call. And the first thing he reminded me was the time that we met. We met actually on a bank along the river here, or the canal bank. And we were running together. I think we ran about 2, 3, 4 miles. And he brought this up, and I'll never forget it. There's a dog that is literally dying, trying to survive in the water, and just going. And we're running, and the dog's kind of with us, but the dog was quickly, going backwards. And he said, "Larry, what do we do?" I said, "Man, I don't know." And he said, "Oh, look, there's a hose coming out of that garbage right there. Let me pull it up." So he pulled it up, he wrapped it around my waist, and let me go down into the canal to get the dog.
I let him go.
Yeah, he let me go. So he saw the hose, that was his idea, and the rest is history. And the dog did survive, so that was one of our... And then, of course, you did our banquet that year. And I don't know, I had a TV show for 2 years on TBN. I don't know if I interviewed you. I may have. I can't remember now, but... We're so blessed to have you, brother. We love you, man. He did a Bible study this morning. I want you to give him a good hand, okay?
You want this over here, right?
Just right there. You're good. Right there.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. Well, Paul, how many interceptions did you have?
81.
81. Is that amazing? Think about that.
I was
Unbelievable. Lucky.
dumb enough to play.
You know, thank you for inviting me. Larry, I don't know when we last talked. It's been a long time. He called to see if I was still alive. He figured that I've died between now and then, but I'm 84.
Wow.
So, Paul, you and I are,
Brothers.
same milk. I'm glad I brought a resume to have him read it. He didn't read any of it. I'm glad he didn't, because if you read it, you'd think I was 100 years old. I've lived several lifetimes, and I'll try to reminisce a little bit about some of that, including the Vikings. The Super Bowl week, Chiefs, Eagles, who's going to win it? Anybody? Who thinks the Chiefs going to win? Wendy. Oh, Jim.
I think so.
Yeah, okay. It's really interesting because the Chiefs are trying to three-peat. Did you know the Packers won 3 in a row?
Yeah.
But it was before the Super Bowl. No one mentions that. But I think probably maybe the greatest football team I ever was around was the '85 Bears.
Yeah.
Remember those guys? What a bunch of characters they were. There's this story I love to tell. Mike Ditka was the coach, and they're going to play the hated rivals, the Packers, the next day. And so he got up to speak to the group, as they always do the night before a game, and giving him the keys to the game. And he said, before I get started, he said, I'm going to ask the Fridge, Richard Perry, to lead us in the Lord's Prayer after I'm done. Fridge nodded his head, he'd do it. Jim McMahon, the quarterback, turned to Walter Payton. He said, I'll bet you $25 that the Fridge doesn't know the Lord's Prayer. So Ditka finishes his pregame talk, and he turns to the Fridge and says, okay, Fridge, take it away. Lead us to the Lord's Prayer. Fridge said, now I lay me down to sleep. McMahon turned to Walter Payton said, "Here's your $25." I didn't know he knew the Lord's Prayer. There's a bunch of characters I was around from time to time. You know, I come here kind of on, I guess you guys figured I came from some unbelievable background, but I'm the poster boy for being a broadcaster. I was a coach's son. I grew up in a coach's family. My dad had played in the professional league, played way back for the Brooklyn Eagles, and one of his teammates is Vince Lombardi.
Oh my goodness.
And so later, when I became the voice of the Packers, I mentioned that to Vince. He actually remembered my dad. He was a very good player. But reason I say I'm a poster boy, my dad had been a very successful coach in college. And they didn't make any money then coaching. And so his father-in-law offered the farm. There was a farm 40 miles from where we were living on the Kansas-Colorado line. And my dad decided we'd all move there. To me, it was a disaster. I mean, I was a coach's kid. I was a mascot, the ball boy. You know, I really had a great life. And all of a sudden, at 12 years of age, we're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, in the middle of nowhere. I would have run away from home, but they would have seen me running on the horizon for 5 days because there's no trees, there's nothing. And so I actually cried myself to sleep a few times. You know, there are no gangs, no drugs, no drive-by shootings. Shoot, we had nobody drive by. And so that was kind of the start of my career. I get up in the morning, milk a couple of cows, eat breakfast, gas up a tractor, plow till noon, eat my sack lunch, gas up the tractor, come back in, milk 2 cows, eat my dinner at night, and that was my total existence. And so those long, hot summer days on a tractor, I decided I was going to make up ball games. Wow. So I'd act like I was in Yankee Stadium, the Boston Garden, the Orange Bowl. To further enhance the broadcast, I'd sing the national anthem. And I did the commercials. Wow. You remember the Gillette commercials? Look sharp and to be sharp to use a razor. I won't go on, but that was basically what I did. If I had an extra round to go, I went into overtime or extra innings or whatever that sport was I was doing at the time. And the interesting thing about it is it had such impact on my subconscious that years later when I did a game, I thought I'd done one. And so I got farmed out to a career. At the time, I resented it, I hated it, but it ended up launching me into this business. So you can see why I'm kind of the poster boy. This is not the way you get into this business. So, I started playing football in high school. My dad got out of the farm. We lost our shirt. We went through the 50s. The 50s were when we had the Dust Bowls too. People don't remember that. They remember the 30s, but the 50s, and we couldn't grow weeds. And he absolutely lost every dime. And so he got back into coaching. He coached me my junior, senior year. We never lost a game. And I really thought I was going to play in the NFL. All you guys going to coach at Saguaro are probably going to think the same thing. But I had a guy who, from my hometown of Ulysses, Kansas. Anybody know where Ulysses, Kansas is? I didn't think so. 2,500. And this guy had gone to University of Kansas. He was an All-American playing for the Detroit Lions. His name was Oliver Spencer. And he was my hero. And he came to my house one time to introduce himself. He gave me his weights. And I remember going into the garage and lifting weights. And every time I'd lift one, I think I'm getting closer to the NFL. You know, and eventually be able to play. So I ended up getting a scholarship to play football in college. And what I found out, and I'm sure this has probably happened for a lot of athletes, they were bigger, faster, stronger, and I was really an incredibly average player in college. You know what my claim to fame was? My teammate and roommate was Bill Parcells.
Oh, man.
And Bill and I became fast friends, and we used to have these sports quizzes. I never competed. He had more trivia than anyone I ever knew. And so one time we finished up, and he turned to me and he says, "Bender, what the heck do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "Bill, I want to be a sportscaster." He says, "That's not good enough. Where do you want to be a sportscaster?" I said, "CBS." I said, "Bill, what about you? What do you want to be when you grow up?" He said, "I'm going to be a head football coach." I said, "That's not good enough, Bill. Where are you going to be a head coach?" The New York Giants.
Wow. Really?
And he won 2 Super Bowls.
Unbelievable.
We were 19 years old.
I know, man.
Isn't that funny how you have that on the tractor? Subconsciously, I thought I'd done a game, and I always had that goal, even though it was so far-fetched at that time. But that's what got me started. And so I go to college on a football scholarship, and then I go to grad school at the University of Kansas. And I've been married for about a year. By the way, I've been married 61 years. God knew there was only one woman that could live with me this long, and I kept her. But anyway, so I'm in graduate school. My wife's teaching. She doesn't get paid because it's summertime. And my fellowship was out. I wasn't making any money. And so we were forced to move into this dusty basement of my Aunt Romance's in Kansas City. Now, Aunt Romance was really Attila the Hun. She was impossible. She'd come down at least once a week and say, "When are you going to get a job?" And I kept saying, "Well, I'm trying." He said, "Well," she said, "that's not good enough. You know, you're just married. You got to support your wife. Come on, get a job." And so this went on for several weeks. And one day I get a call from this guy, and he says, "Gary," he says, "you can get in the car and drive to Wichita. I think you might have a chance at a job." So I had to borrow money from Attila the Hun. I think it was $30. We didn't have any credit cards then. And I got in the car and drove 150 miles to Wichita to a Kansas Association of Radio Broadcasters meeting. I'm waiting outside, going to break up the session. And they come out, and this guy who called me says, "Come here, I'll introduce you to this guy." This guy's name is Fred Conger. He owns a station in Hutchinson, Kansas. You know Kansas at all, you know where that is. So I went up to him, introduced myself, and said, "Mr. Conger, I'd love to work for KWBW Radio." I said, "My dad used to coach at Dodge City Junior College. We came into Hutchinson to play the Blue Dragons. I love Convention Hall. I'd love to live in Hutchinson and work for you." That's all I have. And he looked at me and he said, "Well, who told you I was going to hire anybody?" I said, "This guy over here, Tom." He says, "Well, why would I hire anybody?" He says, "I own the station and I do the sports." And I'm standing there thinking, $30. I got to go back and tell her I still don't have a job. And he turned to me and said, "Are you married?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He says, "What's your wife do?" I said, "She's a teacher." He says, "You're hired. I'm the president of the school board and I need a teacher." That's how I got my first job. That job was just amazing. I was a disc jockey, news director, sports director. I had a country and western show live. And I was Big Ben and Ed the Redhead, and I was Big Ben. And that's how I launched my career. So basically, one of the jobs I really wanted was to be the voice of the Kansas Jayhawks. I had, gone to graduate school there, and in the back of my mind, I thought that would be the ultimate job. So I get there, and I am really timing it beautifully because Kansas had a great football team. We had John Riggins at fullback, Bobby Douglas at quarterback. We had an outstanding team, and we come to the last game of the year. We're going to play our arch rivals, Missouri, in Columbia. If we win, we go to the Orange Bowl. So here's what I did. I said, Well, the Kansas Jayhawks are leading here 21-17. There's 4 minutes and 45 seconds left in this game. Ladies and gentlemen, if the Jayhawks can hang on, we'll be in Miami, Florida on New Year's Day. I've never been east of the Mississippi, and I can't believe I could be in the Orange Bowl on New Year's Day. The Jayhawks break the huddle. Bobby Douglas, he's underneath center. He takes the snap. He rolls the left. He's buried by an avalanche of Missouri Tigers. He's down. He's hurt. I said, if Douglas can continue, we may not be in Miami on New Year's Day. And he was left-handed. Remember when he played for the Bears? You remember that, Jim.
Yeah.
And so he's writhing in pain. He's holding his arm. And I'm trying to describe the injury. And I said, it looks like Douglas is hurt. And I want to say he hurt his passing or pitching hand. And I said, it looks like Bobby Douglas has hurt his pissing hand.
Oh.
I thought my career might be over because in that day and age you couldn't do those kind of things. Now you could. Well, we won the game and we went to the Orange Bowl and played Penn State and had 12 men on the field and lost that game, if you might recall. You know, my big break though was with the Packers. To get to be the voice of the Packers. Wow. Now Ray Scott preceded me, and I came in after he did, and I knew Ray very well, one of my heroes in the business. But to be in Lambeau Field and to call the game was a special thing. I'll never forget it. And while I was there, I had remarkable relationships with some of the guys who had their great success. Bart Starr. I did a lot of his banquets. And Bart comes to me one day, and I'm emceeing a banquet for him, and he says, Gary, he says, I got a suggestion for you. I said, what's that? He says, there's a Fellowship of Christian Athletes camp in St. Olaf, Minnesota. I'd like to encourage you to go. I said, well, you know, Bart, that's my vacation time. I get away before the start of the season. Well, think about it. Next week he came in and he says, are you going to St. Olaf? I mean, he just wouldn't give up. So I said, okay, I'll go. And I told my wife, we had a baby and a 2-year-old at the time. And I told my wife, I said, we're going to this camp, but if I don't like it, we're out of here. So we go to St. Olaf. Has anybody been to an FCA camp, Fellowship of Christian Athletes? Yeah. Well, you know, you have the Dog Patch Olympics, and you're doing all kinds of, come on in.
Oh, sorry.
You're doing all kinds of you know, activities, competing, and I'm having a great time playing flag football and all the different things. And then they had a very threatening time. It was called a quiet time. And that meant everybody sat down under a tree, pulled out their Bibles, and it's a quiet time of the Lord. And I am really threatened. I have no idea what they're doing. No idea. But there was a guy with the Minnesota Vikings, Doug Kingsrider. Remember Doug? He was a tight end. He played at the University of Minnesota. And he came up to me and says, what's going on with you? And I said, well, Doug, I'm out of my area of expertise. What is it? And he started talking to me. I started throwing passes to him because we were going to go to camp pretty soon. And he came alongside me and really led me to the Lord in a special way. He said, let me ask you something. He said, did you ever have a picture of Jesus standing at a door in your church? I said, yeah, I did. He said, did you ever notice anything very unusual about it? And I said, no. He said, well, next time you look at that picture, realize there's no doorknob on the door. And he then cited Revelation 3:20, behold, I stand and knock, and anyone should hear my voice and open the door. I'll come in and have fellowship with him and he with me. That triggered in my life and in my heart a need to commit my life to Christ. And you know, you think about timing, God's timing. I look at his sovereignty sometimes and just, I'm so humbled. I was trying to get to the network. I sent out a bunch of tapes, resumes, nothing. That time there were only 3 networks. There wasn't any ESPN or Fox or whatever. And so one day I'm getting ready to type up my script for a TV show I did at 10 o'clock, and I get a call from a guy in New York. This guy's name is Bob Rosen. He says, "Is this Gary Bender?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Hey, I understand you might be network quality. Can you send me a resume and tape?" Well, I had 30 of them. So I sent one to him. And 3 days later, he calls back and says, "CBS has hired you." I said, "Wait a minute. Who are you?" And he explained who he was representing. And I said, "Well, how did you find this out?" Well, he said, "I was in a New York delicatessen meeting with the president of CBS, Bob Wussler. We got up to leave the deli, and Wussler said to me, 'Hey, we just lost Jack Buck. He's going to NBC to do Grandstand, and do you know of any young guy out there that might be network quality?' The guy at an adjacent table, about as far away as you're sitting, got up, came over and says, 'Gentlemen, I hate to interfere. You don't know who I am, but I want to recommend somebody for the job.' They said, 'Well, who are you?' He said, 'I do the Big Ten Game of the Week. I'm the producer, and I'd like to recommend Gary Bender.'" That's the sovereignty of God. It's humbling.
Yeah.
It really is humbling. But the timing was good because, and you're going to love this, Paul. My first year was 1975. The playoff game between the Cowboys and the Vikings. Look at Paul, he's already. They played outdoors then in Bloomington. It was a December day, snow on the ground, wind blowing. The NFL Today group was there, Musburger and Phyllis George and Irv Cross and Jimmy the Greek, and I was doing the game with Johnny Unitas. Unitas was my first broadcast partner. What a great guy to work with. And so the game.
Go ahead.
Is it? I'm almost afraid to say this in front of Paul. But anyway.
Because I'll get it.
Oh, he's going to give me the real story. But anyway, to make a long story short, the game is a battle. It's being won really in the trenches between the offensive and defensive line in a lot of ways. And so we had a director out of WBBM in Chicago. We only had one reverse angle camera then. Can you imagine? One. And he took that reverse angle camera and trained it into the line of scrimmage, and guess what happened? Roger Staubach rolls back and throws the first Hail Mary. There's been a lot of Hail Marys. Look at the pain over there. What happened, if you look at I've seen it since, and I remember at the time I wondered about it. Nate Wright was defending Drew Pearson, and it looked like Pearson pushed off.
Looked like it.
Do you want to stop this story now? Or?
Yeah. The only way he could knock Nate Wright down is pushing him from the front.
Okay.
And he pushed him from the front. Well.
So anyway, I will tell my version that we can get Paul up here. But anyway, so got the touchdown pass. So the Vikings try to make a comeback. Fran Tarkenton rolling around, and I think at that time the rule was in the grasp. If you were in the grasp, you were down. You didn't have to be knocked down. Look at Paul. And so there was a controversial play, to say the least, and a fan threw a bottle out of the stands and hit the head linesman, Armin Terzian, and he went down. Johnny Unitas said, "Oh my gosh," he says, "this is a tragedy." He said, "I can't believe we're in the United States. We got people throwing bottles out of the stands. We're going to have to put up moats around the football field." I remember the producer in his headset saying, "Shut up, Johnny, you've lost it." So, Cowboys win, go to Super Bowl 10. Wow. So the game's over, and this director who had trained the camera in the line of scrimmage came up to me and says, "Gary, I just got a call from New York. I just got fired." I said, "Really? Why'd you get fired?" "Because I didn't have the reverse angle of the Drew Pearson, Nate Wright play." So he's crying. because he says, I've got 2 kids who are going to be in college. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, and so on and so forth. Unitas comes up to me and grabs me. Now, I tell you, Unitas was strong. Grabs me by my arm and says, don't you ever let a producer tell me to shut up. So I crawl out of the press box and I go down to the parking lot, waiting on a car to take me to the airport, and I see Fran Tarkenton coming out of the Vikings locker room, and he's crying. And I go over to him, and I said, Fran, I'm really sorry you lost the game. What a game. He says, I'm not crying because of that. I'm crying because my dad, watching the game in Atlanta today, died of a heart attack. I want to tell you something. I wasn't sure I wanted to continue. This is my first year at the network. This is a lot bigger than being on a tractor. I didn't understand the impact of the sport I was calling and all the things that can transpire. And so I went through a real soul-searching thing. You know, 1 Peter 5:7, cast all your anxiety upon me because I care for you. Philippians 4:6 and 7, you know, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God that passes all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. I went through that, and I memorized it, and I prayed about it. And finally, you know, God spoke to me in a very interesting way. He said, Garrett, you can't worry about bottles being thrown out of stands. You can't worry about people getting fired. All you can do is to prepare the very best that you can, to work at it, to be consistently prepared. Problem with preparation for broadcasts, you only use about 10% of it.
Yeah.
You don't know which 10% you're going to use. John Wooden had a great quote in his book, Coach. He said, the failure to prepare means preparing to fail. So I really made a point. I'm a grinder. I was a grinder on the golf course. Even when I had that hole-in-one you were talking about. I just am a grinder, and I worked very hard at it. I crossed all my T's, I dotted all my I's, and I look back on that, and it was probably over the top. But I never wanted anybody to come up to me and say, you weren't prepared. I made a lot of mistakes. I never nailed a broadcast. In fact, one of the guys I worked with one time was Pat Hayden. Remember, he was a Rhodes Scholar. We were doing college football, and we used to have this little thing after our broadcast. We'd be on a plane or doing something, and we'd debrief each other, military term. In other words, we would try to go back and recapture what we did and didn't do. And we always had this little comment between us. So the bottom line is, Pat, how do we do today? We were incredibly average. And that was basically the summary. We never ever got it exactly where we wanted to. I wish I could have taken my headset off and said I nailed it, but I never did. So that was a driving force in my life at that time. Now when I got to the network, I had to flex. I did 29 different sports.
Wow.
Now most people know me for basketball or football. But did you know I did a shark tanking contest? I did a wrist wrestling championship. And the one my wife to this day just doesn't want to hear about, I did the Battle of the NFL Cheerleaders. And you know who my analyst was? John Madden. Madden told me that he didn't want to do it. He wanted to get out of it. He says, we do this, don't you tell anybody we've done it, and I'm going to burn the tapes after it's all over. It was a bad experience, but you had to flex. You had to, if somebody called you and say, have you ever done a wrist wrestling championship? No, but I know about wrist wrestling. You know, you just never wanted them to say, oh, he turned us down. They wouldn't come back the next time. But it was a challenge to me to be flexible. I worked with some of the best in the business. I mentioned John Madden. John, I started laughing when I talk about it because I love the guy dearly. And John had won the Super Bowl, retired with the Oakland Raiders. He's sitting in the back of his house with his 2 bulldogs. And his wife Virginia came home one day and said, "John, are you just going to sit out here the rest of your life? I can't have you around the house like this. You're driving me crazy." So she says, "I'm going to get you a job at broadcasting." John said, "Oh, yeah, well, Virginia, you know." And sure enough, CBS hired him. They called me and they said, "We want you to coach him. We want you to coach John Madden." Now, I didn't know him very well. I said, "Well, whatever you want, I'll try to do my best." It was a struggle for a while. The thing that was really bad, you have a headset, you have 3 people talking to you, a director, a producer, and an associate producer. Associate producer, all he does is says, "Commercial, 10, 9, 8, you got to get off the air because that commercial's more important than you are." And John couldn't handle it, people talking to him. It just distracted him. And he got upset one time in Foxborough, took his headset off and threw it down and went out of the press box. He came back. But it was really not going well. And I got to thinking, well, maybe they better get somebody else to work with him. And then one day, and I'll never forget this, we're doing a game in Cincinnati, and it clicked. And he became John Madden. Wow. John Madden, you know, is a legend. And what he was able to do and the impact he had in the business. We were in the Silverdome one time where the Lions used to play. And we used to have this little opening. It'd be two shot. It'd open up and, "Hi, I'm Gary Bender with John Madden today. You know, the Detroit Lions are playing the Minnesota Vikings and the record such and such." And I'd turn to John and he'd give the key to the game. And then I'd slide off camera to get ready for the kickoff because we went right to the kickoff then. So I slide off. We have these headsets on. I get into the booth. John finishes his thoughts. He comes in the booth and the game starts. We got one problem. His headsets aren't working. He can't hear me, can't hear himself, and he's upset. And so we get to a commercial. Here's the coach part of me. I said, "Now, John, what did I tell you? You can't let technical difficulties take you down." I know. So I got people up in the booth, they're crawling around on the floor trying to figure out what's not working, but it just gets worse. And so finally I tell the truck, "Okay, I'm going to give him my headset, and I'm going to give him a stick mic, and I'll stay on headset." So I gave John a stick mic, a hand mic, and it didn't get any better. He could hear himself, he could hear me, and I got to another commercial. Now I'm ticked off. I said, "You can hear yourself now, you can hear me, what is going on? These replays are coming up and you're not saying hardly anything." And he looked at me and he says, "I know what the problem is." "Well, what's the problem?" He said, "I can't talk with anything in my hand." When he was broadcasting, he did this. He knocked my glasses out of the front of Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. So I took the stick mic, gave him the headset, and John Madden continued on. I love the guy though. I've got story after story about him. You know, some people will say to you, "What was maybe your best moment?" And it wasn't in football or basketball. It was in the Olympics in 1988 in Calgary. And I was assigned to speed skating, another event I knew nothing about. Keith Jackson had done it 4 years previous, and I forget what they signed him to. This is when I was with ABC. And so they had Eric Heiden working with me. He'd won 8 gold medals in speed skating. He was at Stanford in med school. Great guy. So he comes in, and we're practicing calling some of the races. It's not going real well, but we figure we'll figure it out by the time we get there. And so about 3 or 4 days before we would start the competition, our leading skater was a guy by the name of Dan Jansen. Do you remember the name? Yeah. And Dan's sister had died of cancer. And so he came to Calgary, we met with him, and Eric said, I'll never forget this. It was a very painful meeting. He said, Dan, I don't think you should skate. I think you need to wait. I don't think you have your edge. And edge in skating, you can understand what that means. And he said, no, I got it. I got to do it for my sister. He was a prohibitive favorite in every event. He was going to win the gold medal. He was a world record holder. And so we call his first race, and he's coming around the turn, and down the home stretch, and he crashes into the wall. And so Eric astutely said, you know, he's just not right. He needs to wait. So we waited another week, and he's going to skate again. And so Eric really believed he was ready. He really thought this is going to be a world record pace. And he was on a world record pace. And he comes around and unbelievably crashes again, almost in the same spot. And I remember saying something profound like, oh no. But basically, it was stunning. And so Roone Arledge, who was the ABC producer, said, Gary, you got to go down and interview Dan Jansen. In deference to the death of his sister, we have not talked to him. You've got to talk to him. So I get up, I've got all my ABC gear on, and I go down to this interview room. Now, when you go to the Olympics, you live there for over a month. I mean, you become part of the Canadian culture. And so I started down this one stairway, and there's a Royal Canadian Mounted Policeman said, you can't come in here. I said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm with ABC, and our interview room says, you can't come in here. So I tried to go around, and he said, if you continue, I'm calling for reinforcements. So I did something that I look back on, and I don't know what possessed me. I decided the only way I could get that interview room was to go outside, it was an indoor skating rink, and run in the snow and come around and come up through the furnace area. And I remember running out there, and I'm thinking, Lord, no one knows I'm out here. I may not get back in, and they're going to wonder why I'm not showing up for the interview. It was a scary moment. You know, sometimes you do things, you get stretched, and you find yourself looking back and saying, I really did that. So I got there, I got into the interview room, Jim McKay threw it to me, and I did the interview with Dan Jansen, and it was one of the best interviews I've ever had. I didn't have time to mess it up. But he had tears, I had tears, and obviously it was a big disappointment. It took him 2 more Olympics before he finally won a gold medal. But that was my best moment. There's others I could share with you, and I'd like to open it up for questions if you want that. But today, right now, I am redirected. I retired from sportscasting, and I'm redirected. I'm now teaching Bible studies and Sunday schools. I've kind of become an ambassador for Christ. I am out there now telling people what Christ has done for us. And it's really amazing. I've been able to take the stories that I had in broadcasting, take them across the aisle, and use them in the ministry. Those stories are really impactful. You know, Jesus was a storyteller. And so what I do is I tell stories, some of which I've shared with you today, and it really does give me an opportunity to speak to people who weren't even alive when I was broadcasting. You go out to a place like Grand Canyon University to speak, and you're thinking to yourself, these kids weren't even a gleam in their father's eye. So it's really been allowed me to be able to do that in a way that is humbling. I have a life verse. Do you guys have a life verse? Mine is Galatians 2:20. You know, I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me in this life which I now live. I live by faith in the Son of God who gave himself up for me. I'm hid in Christ with God. I have Christ's robes of righteousness on me. I have Christ's imputed righteousness in me. And so it impacts me in ways that I'm able to still be married after 61 years. I have 2 boys who are just doing remarkably well. There's a poem I used to use, fame is a vapor, popularity is an accident, and money takes wings. Reputation is what man thinks us to be. Character is what the angels of heaven say before God's throne. I want to be a man of character. I want to make a difference in the kingdom. I want somehow to impact the lives of people, and I hopefully will have that for a long time. I'm 84 years old. So, you're about a year younger, I think.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
But it's really interesting. I just had lunch today, or met today with Tom Van Arsdale, who just lost his brother Dick, his twin brother, and I've been spending a lot of time with him. And he said to me, and he's 81. He says, Gary, he said, something. I didn't give my body permission to do this to me, and that's kind of where it is. I've gone through a cancer just recently. I've battled a lot of different things in my life. But you know what? The peace of God that passes all understanding has sustained me through it all. And I think what I would tell you is that for a farm boy from western Kansas to even have a platform to do this is amazing. I worked with Dr. Dobson for a while. I don't know if you knew that. I co-hosted on Focus on the Family, and I learned so many things from him. But I got a call one day, and there was a kid who I'd gone to high school with, and he says, Gary, I'm so glad to know you're a Christian. I said, well, Stan, what happened to me? And I never knew anything about being born again or having a relationship with the Lord when I was coming up through high school. And he said, you didn't know this? Our pastor was not a believer. Wow. So I didn't become a Christian until I was 31 years old. And do you realize, Chuck Swindoll said this, if you don't become a Christian until you're 31, only 10% of what shoots they do. So I was in a very, very slim area as far as my life is concerned. I don't know what you want to do, Larry. You want to take questions? Do you want to visit? I'd be glad to do that.
Sure.
How's Saguaro going to be this year? Fantastic. My kids went to Chaparral, so I won't say anything. Yes, in that.
Gary, you talked about one of the high points in your career. I want to remind you of a low point at Foxborough. When the first play of the game, your spotter missed a flag. And you said, your job is to keep me honest. That spotter was me. The rest of the game went perfectly. Perfectly average.
Thanks for bringing that up. I was doing 2 games a week. I do Saturday to college and the NFL on Sunday, so I was making some quick transitions. And so I remember I came into Memphis. I think it was the Liberty Bowl I was doing. And what I would do before a game, I'd sit and watch the players warming up, running their formations and so forth, and identify the numbers that I had memorized on the board. I had spotting boards with all the numbers and facts that I hopefully would sometime in the broadcast use. And so I'm watching this team, and they're lining up with a number 84 at tight end, and I don't have an 84. And I turn to my spotter, I think it was Tom Dunlap, and I said, Tom, they're running number 84 on their first team. I don't have one. He said, I'll go check. So he went down to the sports information director. He says, who's number 84 on your team? The guy said, oh, he never plays. He's just, well, he said he's out there with the first team. Oh, he won't be in the game. But guess who caught the first touchdown pass? And I had him. But the problem in this business, you get nailed to the wall if you don't know who it is. This sounds terrible. Well, it was number 84 that caught that pass. We don't know who he is, but we'll find out as soon as we can. You really can get hammered really good on something like that. Any other questions? You're not gonna let me off this
Let's
easy.
have 2 more, okay? And then we'll have buffet.
Wendy?
How do you prepare for stuff like this? I mean, how long do you when you're dealing with so many different teams?
Well, that's a good question. I was a grinder. I was a grinder when I played the game. I was a grinder when I broadcast the game. I'm a grinder now. In other words, I worked very hard at it. And what your problem was is number 19 on Saturday is not the same number 19 on Sunday. And so you had to kind of regurgitate everything. You'd go from one game to the other and try to switch over. There were times it got a little testy, but the biggest problem with it is the stamina. I mean, you stand for 3.5 hours. And I'd stand for 3.5 hours. I couldn't do that today. And then the next day for 3.5 hours, and you've got all this emotion and all that's going on, the energy that comes through it. And so I think the hardest part was to stay sharp, to be on top of it, not getting into the fourth quarter and limping home.
Yeah.
Having that ability. I had games where you had to carry the game. Those are the hard ones. But if the game carried you, it went fast. I always thought when the game was bad, they were putting time back on the clock. But I had some moments where one of the hardest things I think I ever did was work with Bill Russell and Rick Barry. I did the NBA and finals in 1981, and they didn't get along. And Bill Russell, by the way, became a very big friend. He was so intimidating. I mean, I was assigned to meet him in New York, get ready to do a game in Madison Square Garden. And so we're sitting in a restaurant, and I'm just pontificating. I'm saying, oh, Bill, it's great to have you here. Here's how we'll do this. This is how we'll do that, and so on and so forth. And he was drinking a glass of orange juice, and he put it down, and he put his big hand up. Do you know how big his hand is? You know, he was the greatest defensive player in history. 11 NBA titles. I remember a player telling me one time, when you swipe the ball and you're at mid-court, you knew Russell was going to be there. You had to be ready for him to block your shot. Anyway, so he put his hand up and he said, stop. I said, Bill, what's wrong? He says, you don't know me well enough to say that. So I had to earn the right to say certain things to him, to coach him, and I had overextended myself, and I hadn't earned the right. We became very good friends. Wow. He's left-handed golfer just like I am. Wow. And we play golf every chance we got, and he and Rick didn't get along. I want to share this story. This may resonate with you. We're doing the Celtics Rockets in '81. Bird's just come into the league. Houston has Hakeem Olajuwon. When we go to the Boston Garden, it's a blowout. The Celtics are killing it. So our producer came up with an idea. He says, Gary, if we get into a blowout situation the next game in the Garden, I'm going to put some stuff together and we'll just go a different direction, try to hold our audience. Because your audience, goes away. And so we got in that situation, this 22-point lead for the Celtics. And so we go to a commercial and he says, okay, and when we come out, he says, just follow the pictures. So they come out, and there's this black and white photo of Bill Russell and Casey Jones. They played together at the University of San Francisco and with the Celtics, the best of friends. And they're holding some beer bottles, and they've won the gold medal in Melbourne. And so I set it up, and I said, hey, Bill, here's your good buddy, Casey Jones. Congratulations on that gold medal. And Rick Barry says, yeah, he says, who are those guys with the watermelon grins? And Bill just shut down. And we got through the rest of the broadcast. Bill comes to me and says, Gary, I'm not going to work with him anymore. And I said, well, we've got a couple of games left to do. Well, he says, I'm just not going to work with him. So we got in the back of the car. We went to the hotel. and Rick is talking a mile a minute, and Bill gets out and walks out into the hotel, and Rick says to me, "What's wrong with him?" I said, "Well, you know, that comment you made was a racist comment." "Oh, that wasn't racist. We did that all the time in Miami, Florida. Are you kidding me? I didn't mean anything by it." Well, I said, "Bill didn't like it, and I think it's wrong." "Well, I'll take care of it." So he got out of the car and he was going to go up and talk to Bill. Bill wouldn't talk to him. Next day in the Boston Globe, racial slur by Barry. So CBS gets a hold of it. They call me and they say, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, we're in trouble." It looks to me like we may have to get some new guys to come in. So they did that. They got ready to replace him, and we flew into Houston to continue the playoffs. But they went to the production meeting and acted like they were best of friends. So they waved it off. We finished doing the game, the series, the playoffs. The point I'm making is that as a broadcaster, I always was aware of some of those pitfalls you can get into. It could be racist, it could be misconstrued. And what I've often said, my strength in broadcasting is I really love the people I've worked with. And as an end result, it changed what I said and how I spoke to them. I was a big body language guy. That day when Barry said that, Russell went, never said another word. Rick didn't even notice it. He just continued on. I'm not criticizing Rick as much as see the pitfalls of what can happen to you. And you have to be very careful with your preparation.
Did he ever apologize to him for that?
No, it was, after we finished the playoffs, that was it.
Yeah, well, too bad.
Yeah.
The referees never apologize to us either.
Hey, Paul, with all those interceptions, were they all
Can I-
legit? Were they all legit? There was no interference, or
No.
you didn't get there early?
I played a clean game.
You know what? I think it's amazing what you did.
Well, can I talk about that?
Come up here.
Football game?
Defend yourself.
I'm going to defend
Let's
it.
make. Hey, you know what? My version's right though. Just remember that.
Your version might be right, but it's wrong.
Hey, good job, Gary.
Good. I just want to say, I'm not going to talk about it.
Oh, come on.
No, we want to hear it.
No, I'm not going to talk about it.
What are you just you're apologetic because what?
Well, the referees screwed us. That's all there is to it. How can a defensive back hold the wide receiver catching the ball, and you see the wide receiver go like this on the,
He's taking
Come on, you said you wanted to play in the NFL.
on the shoulders, front shoulders of my buddy that got
Nate Wright.
Nate Wright.
Nate Wright. It was
Where were you?
I was about this, about me to you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
Me to you, and it just went boom. And now I was walking around and the lead referee told the other guy, the referee, to pick it up.
Oh, he did.
I am not
I
lying.
didn't know that.
I don't remember that.
Wow. Hey, you know,
That's great.
Well, I was right this close.
Okay.
They told the referee to pick it up.
You know,
Well,
What a great meeting today.
what an awesome meeting.
you know,
What an awesome.
Hey, you know, to get back to that,
I
you know, they found out who threw that bottle. Did you know that?
yeah, they found out who did the bottle, but they didn't find out the They had fourth down.
It was a Hail Mary.
No, wait a second. When they were on the 50, about the 50-yard line, they had fourth down, and one of the receivers caught the ball almost 10 feet out of bounds. And I know that because they measured it.
All right.
I think I better get out of here. I'm in a lot of trouble here.
The Vikings measured that call, and it was 10 feet out of bounds.
You know, Larry, if you told me Paul Krause was doing here, I wouldn't have
got a buffet, guys.
Wait a second.
We got a buffet.
Take it away, Joe.
Wait a second.
We got a buffet.
The Lord's been good to me.
Yeah.
And I can accept it, but it's very hard.
We got a buffet. I just want to say something about the buffet. The buffet is $25, okay? The buffet is $25. Not too much more than what we pay at Mancuso. So we want to help out this restaurant. $25. There's a tip jar right there. $25. And anything else you get?
It includes their drinks.
Okay, includes the drink, dessert.
That's good.
So if we can all participate in that $25.
Leave a tip on the way
Leave
out.
a tip on the way out. Larry, would you like to thank God for the food?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I gotta eat. I know, I had this stroke and I'm learning how to walk again. Okay, we're gonna pray. What? We got it. Okay. What was I gonna say now? We're gonna have a word of prayer. And let's pray. Lord, thank you for this wonderful day. This is the day the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I'm so thankful, Lord, for Gary being here. Lord, thank you for the anointing of God upon his life. I'm so thankful that the Word of God dwells within his heart. And we just pray we'll have a wonderful meal. What a great day. Thank you, Lord. Thank you so much. We love you. We want to lay down our lives for you. You've done so much for us. We give you praise. We give you honor. And we give you glory. And all God's people said, Amen. Amen.
All right, the buffet.
We want to thank you for joining us again today here at the A&M Athletes Bible Study. We hope you'll be back next week. We'll have another exciting guest. And leave a comment. This is one of the best interviews we've ever had, one of the best testimonies. Thank you, Gary Bender, for joining us, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.